We need to celebrate a little bit. Throw up that graphic. Look what got signed, folks. Yes, the mask mandate bill was finally signed by Governor Little yesterday morning, about 24 hours to go before it would have just became law anyway without his signature, but he did sign it. Folks, I'm telling you, this is pretty wild because I have the dynamics of this bill are more than just masks, okay? More than just masks. And you probably are getting sick and tired of me talking about masks. But the mask, even during COVID, even now, today, the mask is a symbol of something, right? It's a symbol of something. It is now a dividing line between two nations that live next to each other, two communities that live next to each other in your city, in your town, even in this state. Even in this state, we see people still hanging on to this false sense of security that a cloth mask gives you to fight off some sort of airborne viral infection. And so this isn't just a victory against mask mandates. It is a victory among many fronts, okay? Many fronts. And we're going to get into it today. We have gone back into the archives and followed this journey, which culminated with the signature yesterday from the governor. But really, it all started with this top-down enforcement, mask enforcement. Now you've heard the arguments, you've heard the debates if you've been following this. But for those who haven't, what happened from the top level, from the highest levels of our government, was a complete psychological operation to instill fear in the public in order for you to think that this mask somehow provides you protection. Okay? Especially in our children, which did zero healthy children who contracted or tested positive for that virus died. Zero in this country. Zero. If you were already sick, this exacerbated the problem. Okay? But if you were a normal, healthy child, you didn't get sick from this, and you didn't die from this. Okay? So we don't need to rehash. We don't need to rehash the entire thing here, because what we need to point out is that from the CDC level, the experts issuing their strongly worded recommendations and shaming people for not doing it, it just trickled down all the way to your school board, all the way to your courtrooms, all the way to your DMV offices, all the way. And they said, you cannot engage in society unless you wear a mask. Okay? They could have said that about anything. You cannot engage in society unless you do X. Right? And so this bill, getting this through, was a culmination of hard work and effort, and the ability to to finally say no, right? And it took so much. It took elections. It took fortitude from the folks in the Capitol, and it took a certain strategy that we're going to talk to some of these legislators later today. I have invited Senator Brian Lenny, Representative Rob Beiswinger, who were the two sponsors behind the bill that got signed this year, H32. And I've also invited former Representative Carrie Hanks, who championed this bill in 2021, in February of 2021, at the height of the masking madness, of all of the madness. February 21. Put your mind back there again. And she fought for 2 years in the session to get that through before she lost her primary. Bananas that she loses her primary for fighting for us. But Carrie Hanks will join us after the top of the hour as well, because this is a lot of her work She laid a lot of the foundation and a lot of the groundwork for this fight. And then we'll get into the strategy behind it. Like how did we spend the last 4 years, right? From 21 to 25, it's actually almost 5 sessions, like 5 full sessions, getting these bills, having them stop in the Senate, and then holding elections and being like, well, we're going to change people. We're going to get people in there who can vote the way we need them to vote. And then it wasn't enough. So we doubled down in 24 and said, let's get more people in there. Let's get more conservatives in there. And then now you see what happens. And then people have different strategies, right? We'll talk with Brian Lenny, who came in 2023's session, a completely different person than he is right now, but his effectiveness is incredible, but he's still the same guy, right? So anyway, so we're going to get into that. We're going to get into all that. But let's do some context here first. Let's do some context. I want you to watch this. We went through, like I said, 5 years worth of footage from the archives of the state legislature. Up late, pulling video, pulling clips from committee hearings, from floor sessions, all throughout the House. And so rather than walk you through everything and just show you clip and then have my commentary, we just put together this montage here that is pretty powerful. And it's gonna show you the journey that a bill like this had, okay? Where we start out in February of 2021 and we take you all the way to today. So let's roll this. Go for it.
Okay, go, Mommy. Put your mask on. No, you gotta wear it on, honey. No, you gotta keep it on.
Special place in hell for these people who have done this to this man's daughter.
The concerned parent says a teacher tied a mask around the face of his special needs daughter.
The mask was quite tight on her face, which was, of course, obstructing her ability to speak and her ability to breathe.
Well, that father is blaming the school mask mandates for his daughter Sophia's suffering.
Fox 35's Holly Bristows.
Chairman and committee, this RS is designed to eliminate future mask mandates. If people were dying in the streets, we would not need government mandates.
I'm a state employee of the Department of Agriculture. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. As I started last month, February 16th, I was put on medical leave the next day because a contractor questioned why I was wearing a face shield. I provided a copy of my doctor's note to the contractor and my boss, stating I could not wear a mask.
Nobody ever should require me or my children to put on a medical device just because they think that's what's best for my health, and then turn me away at hospitals. I've now been to the emergency room twice, and they've turned me. I sat for 3 hours in the emergency room 2 days ago.
I was awakened one night when I was 14 years old by a stranger laying on top of me. He put his hand over my face and I could not breathe. He was so close to my face that I could only see his eyes. And I saw those eyes day and night for months and months. I would just, a mere blinking would bring his eyes back to my mind. And through the years I've healed, but now with these masks, when I go to the grocery store, those eyes are on every aisle and around every corner. And I have avoided going to the store as much as possible. It creates enormous anxiety for me.
We had a doctor of psychology that came. And when she testified, she said, "Do you know how many children are raped every day?" And then, can you imagine those children having to put a mask on their face to go to school the next day? Those masks were to muffle their screams and their cries. And she said they are just unable to do that. Can you imagine the trauma of that?
As far as other issues, I have kids in Idaho City, little elementary kids who are still being masked again, despite the fact there are hardly any cases, because one person on the school board thinks it's in their best interest to keep them masked, despite the pleas of the parents to take those masks off their face and let them get back to school without breathing whatever they breathe in that mask all day long.
Okay, let's set aside the wearing masks versus not wearing a mask controversy for a minute, and just consider that there is a time, any place, where a mask should be required.
This is a matter of personal freedom, that your health and safety is your responsibility primarily. It is not government's responsibility.
However, I would leave you with this final thought. If the government can today require us to wear a mask, tomorrow it could require us to all obtain a vaccine. What's it going to require next? It's my belief that we are starting down a very dangerous slope of taking away personal choices, individual liberties, and the government is doing that all in an attempt to provide safety and security. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I would err on the side of personal liberty and freedom, and I would allow individuals to make these choices, and I would ask for your green light. Thank you.
Does any member wish to change his vote?
I think we're mostly familiar with this bill. It's a bill to prohibit the state of Idaho, a political subdivision, or an officer of the state from mandating the usage of a face mask, face shield, or other face covering for the purpose of preventing or slowing the spread of a contagious or an infectious disease.
Acquisitions, whether there's masking, not masking, and so forth. And so with that, I just ask that you consider whether or not the mask and the protocols and the mandates actually accomplish what we think they're going to accomplish.
Someone listening to this debate could get the wrong information, and it's important to public health that people have accurate information right now. When it comes to how well masks work, it's well documented that the higher quality mask, the better protected you are. It doesn't matter the size of the virus, it matters how the virus floats around in the air. It gets attached to moisture droplets. And that's what the masks help protect against.
We are smart. We know what our health needs are. If our health needs require us to put on a mask, we can mask. But if they are not, a simple recommendation would do. We do not need to live with people making these decisions on our behalf any longer.
U.S. Constitution Amendment 9, I'll read. The enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. You don't need to list our rights in the Constitution, all of them. That's what that amendment means. It's my right to decide my health decisions, not yours. I support this bill.
And when you have had your own child in a hospital, lying on a bed, because they tried to slit their throat because of all that was happening in their lives at that time, you'll understand the issues and how severe this actually is. And we don't know the consequences, the full effects of these consequences until many years down the road, but we're seeing it happen now, and it's happening with our youngest children with their development, and it's happening with our older children with their mental health. And so it is up to the parents. They get to decide on what's transpiring with their kids and what's best for their kids. It is not up to us to mandate this, and so I'll be supporting this bill.
Does any member wish to change the vote? We'll lock this.
But as we sit here today in 2024, it's crystal clear to me, and I think to probably most of us in this room, if we admit it, that much of our COVID response was unscientific, unjustified, and frankly absurd. So today I stand firm in the conviction that no government official, politician, or bureaucrat has the authority to strip us of our inalienable rights. This is not a path we can afford to tread again. Instead, we must ensure that our response to any health crisis respects the dignity, freedom, and well-being of all Idahoans, and it's grounded in genuine science and unwavering respect for individual rights. And I know everyone probably has an opinion on this, and there's other people who are signed up to testify, so I'll just leave it there and stand for questions.
IOSH rating of an N95 means that particulates, it screens out 95% of particulates, screens out almost no bacteria and absolutely no viruses. So the only effective measure that the government may have been able to take if they were going to mandate something that was effective and followed actual science, which was established 23 years before the pandemic and well beyond that, would have been to mandate and pass out NIOSH P100 masks. And instead, we've got dual and triple masking of an N95 mask. N95 plus N95 plus N95 is not 270. It's still 95.
So this bill has gone through this body, passing several times. The concerns that have, I believe, that have brought it to end on the other side of the building, I think those concerns have been addressed. And what this bill does, it is preventing government entities, cities, counties, the governor, from mandating mask wearing.
So to say that the N95 is no more effective than the surgical mask means that it just covers the face and protects against spit. So it is not a negation of the effectiveness of the surgical mask. It basically saying that the N95 mask is ineffective. So for that purpose, I will be voting in favor of this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm just going to say this is a personal freedom bill, and let's stand up for the people. It's a We the People bill, and let's do this for the people of Idaho.
Clerk will unlock the machine, and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? You can. Does any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will lock the machine and record the roll.
House Bill 32 is not the first time this House has dealt with it, which is the first time this year. I do hope this just simply prohibits government employees, government officials from imposing mask mandates for the purpose of virus and infectious disease transmission, from enforcing that on citizens. So we won't be able to throw anyone in jail or impose massive fines. And I want everyone to know that I truly hope this year will be the final year that we finally get this to the governor's office for his signature and put it behind us.
Clerk will unlock the machine. Members cast their votes. Has every member voted? McCann, Clow.
But as we sit here today in February 2025, it's crystal clear that much of our COVID response was unscientific, unjustified, and frankly absurd. As was just briefly discussed, under the heavy hand of the CDC and Anthony Fauci, we became fixated on mandating that not only free-thinking adults, but toddlers and babies were also forced to wear masks.
The saddest thing I saw was children being masked up, from my perspective, for no reason at all. And I do think it had a really major negative impact on the young people in our schools. And it was heartbreaking to me to see, and I'd love to never revisit that.
And also, simply this is usurping local control. I'm going to be voting no. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President, to debate for the bill. This was not about local control. This was a federal government that pushed this down through reimbursement to hospitals. This wasn't local people making decisions. This was them following in line by what they were told to do by CMS, CDC. That was the issue here. What bothers me the most was it was the biggest head fake, psyop, that I've ever experienced in my life.
And ensuring that never again will Idahoans be subjected to government-imposed mask mandates. Because in this state, we trust the people, not the bureaucrats, to make their own health decisions. And so I proudly support this bill and will be voting for it, not only on my behalf, but on my family's, on my constituents, and on many, many Idahoans. Thank you, Mr. President.
I think Idaho deserves much better. We keep hearing in the news about what the next pandemic's going to be. I've heard bird flu, swine flu, whatever China invents next. So by moving this legislation forward, we're taking essential steps toward restoring public confidence and showing Idaho that the mistakes of the past will not be repeated in the future. And I think something that gets lost in this debate, or soon to be had debate, with this bill specifically, is that this bill does not prevent anyone who wants to wear a mask from doing so. If you want to wear a mask, if you want your kids to wear masks, you can do that. This bill says if you like your mask, you can keep your mask, but the state of Idaho can't force us to do that ever again.
The vote count shows 27 in favor with 6 against and 2 absent. The majority having voted in the affirmative. House Bill 32 has passed the Senate.
Pretty good stuff there, folks. Pretty good stuff. What a journey. Look, I'm not gonna mince words here, because I think I think we need to take a look at what all of that meant, because like I said at the top of the show here, this isn't necessarily specifically about the mask. It's about this word, and you heard it there from Senator Guthrie, local control. That word, that term, local control, I don't think it sounds as good as what people are using it for, because the people who keep using that term, local control, always vote against your personal rights. And so when a bill like this comes along and you see a guy who has that mentality, that was him, Senator Guthrie, the chairman of the Senate State Affairs Committee, who for 3 years, or for many years, 3 bills in a row, didn't have a hearing because he disagreed with it, because he thinks it's all about local control, that as long as the tyranny is local, it's okay, right? As long as it's happening locally, then it's fine. Your rights can be stripped by a mayor or a school board trustee. That's fine. But we certainly at the state level are not going to tell local tyrants that they can't be local tyrants. And this goes for so many issues. Property rights, right? HOAs, right? There's a bill about property rights with short-term rentals that impose certain restrictions on those who have a short-term rental, like an Airbnb or vacation home, where they have to jump through a whole different set of hoops. They have to abide by a whole different set of rules than a normal property owner. But it's local control. Well, I'm sorry, folks, but we're awake. We're paying attention. and local tyrants will be dealt with one way or the other, at the voting booth or through statutory law that comes from up from the top. So a lot more on that to come this session. There's some bills that are flying through, and we'll keep tabs on them. Great victory. All right, the Senate and the House are still in session. Hopefully, if they adjourn before we go off the air, we'll have a bunch of great guests coming on to talk through this. We'll be right back.